Hello and welcome to the Love and Compassion podcast with Giselle. We believe that love and compassion have the power to heal our lives and our world. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more amazing content. Today we'll be talking about healing our bodies and our minds and souls with love and compassion. Our guest is Georgie Holbrook, who is an emotional wellness mentor, spiritual guide, speaker, musician, and author of 4 self-help books. Her self-healing story has been published in 23 national magazines, and she can be found on international and national podcasts, as well as her YouTube channel. She's a gifted intuitive healer, combining her wisdom with that of her lifelong angel helpers. She has worldwide clients, which rely on her to interpret how to make both long-term and everyday decisions. For example, she really helps them understand how emotions manifest as health issues, as a language, as our sacred self tries to get our attention by telling our inner story. She teaches that our birthright is to live our passion and not pain. Georgie loves natural principles that are available for everyone who want to experience new possibilities in joyful living. Welcome to the show, Georgie. Hi, Georgie.
Oh my goodness. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh,
It's
no.
really fun listening to the introduction. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm so honored and blessed, not only to be on your show, but to be alive.
Yeah. Oh, I agree with that. I'm so excited that you're on the show today because I actually read your book. I actually found you many, many years ago when I was going through my own, bout of rosacea. It was a really challenging time in my life. And I think that's kind of how it expressed itself. And so now, many, many years later, we actually met through a mutual friend. I was wondering if you could start by telling our listeners a little bit about your story and what kind of got you to this place where you are today.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So, where to begin? I'll begin when I was about 8, 9, 10 years old. I loved music and singing. And I actually would create songs and words, and this was my therapy and my love. I grew up in Upper Michigan in the United States, here in the country. So my piano and my singing was my joy. So I sang in choirs and whatever. But fast forward, not being informed about dating, I went on my first date at age 14.
Oh, wow.
And I had made my own skirt and my own blouse, and I show up on this date not knowing, so I'm the only child, so not being informed about compassion and education. So I go on my first date to be date raped. And what it did is it took all the joy and totally transformed my life in that moment. So I came home, didn't tell my parents, didn't know what to do, totally traumatized, totally felt devalued. So that event happened, and then I was taking private voice lessons from a man that was just like my cheerleader. I could do all these things with my voice, and he was in an auto accident and died. So 2 things came in at once. And
Yeah.
not having anybody that understands trauma at that level and why I became silent. So I went inward and just felt very unworthy. At age 16, I realized that I was in high school and I could work a part-time job, but not only one part-time job, but 2 part-time jobs, and go to high school, because that was my drug of choice at that time. I got praised for working. It was like I could work the afternoon job and then I could work until midnight. And my parents thought, man, they had a superstar. No, they had somebody that was really numbed out. And so that became my work addiction. And so I got in the corporate world pretty fast and was just eager to take on one job after another to not feel. But I didn't know that that's what was governing me. But I just knew that from the waist down, I felt pretty numb, but I couldn't identify it with it. It just didn't feel right. But the good news is I've got a very brilliant mind. So in the corporate world, I was hiring and training and whatever the project was, I could figure it out. And that was the basis that later on, when I got a health issue, I knew how to solve problems because I was interacting with employees. And so there's no coincidence how the great divine actually orchestrates our life.
Yeah.
And so I ended up working for a group that some people remember, H. Ross Perot in Dallas, who actually was in 9 different states and had 40,000 employees, and along with my own job, right? So it was just
Oh, wow.
piling on. So now I'm working like 7 days a week, many times 12 to 14 hours a day. So I could operate out of logic and brilliance, but I had no concept of taking care of my health. I mean, that was not in the schedule. So what I found in the corporate world, it really, for me, this is just my personal experience. For me, there was no compassion. There was no compassion for the human body. So in one of my books, I talk about feeling like a glorified robot, very educated, right? Very brilliant, could do all these tasks, but no feelings on the inside. So you're on a railroad, but there's no tracks down the end, and you're going really fast.
Oh.
So something's going to have to give, right?
Yeah.
So that was my beginning. That was my beginning that set me up for this body that's sacred, and treating it like it didn't have a soul and it didn't have a spirit, and it just was this brilliant intelligence that was supposed to operate much like our computers, right? Never to break down. So I hardly ever got sick. So that was my beginning, if you want to see how my beginning was.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so interesting how we glorify overwork. We glorify that achievement. And as you mentioned, specifically in workplaces, but we don't know how many of those people are just trying to run away from their own emotions and just keep busy instead of being able to sit with themselves. And I think this is kind of where COVID has sort of been an interesting thing. We kind of had to shut everything down, and it gave us an opportunity to really be with ourselves, which some people found really challenging.
Really challenging.
Yeah. So how did you get to the point where it got so bad that you couldn't ignore it anymore? Like you kept pressing and suppressing. So at what point did it get so bad that you had to go, oh, okay, so what's going on here?
Right. So I operated much of my corporate world experience on automatic. I just showed up. I did. It wasn't my passion. I didn't enjoy it. It was just extreme. Okay, so at 36, everything changed because the spirit within us has this language, and it's like, okay, you either take notice or it's going to get worse, right? So at 36, having hardly ever gotten sick before, I get allergies. And so, we want a quick fix, right? So I actually go on allergy shots for 5 months, but 3 times a week. At the end of 5 months, the allergies are gone, but my face starts turning red. Can't figure it out. Makeup's not covering it up. So I'm going to my local family doctors, and they're like, it has to be your shampoo, your makeup. So we study all this for a while. And that didn't improve either. So then I'm sent to North Carolina to do a week-long workshop. I can remember it like it was yesterday. So I've got my little fancy suit on, right? And I'm showing up. But now my face breaks out in boils. And makeup doesn't cover it up. And again, I want a quick fix, right? Because this is my job. I'm in the corporate world, and the status of it, and looking well and showing up perfect. And it's really a pretend world after a while. So I come back and I go to so I'm wanting a quick fix. So I go back to looking up doctors, and I go to my first skin cancer doctor, not thinking I had cancer. I just wanted an answer. Let's get at it, get it over with. I can't do this boils at 36 years old, right?
Yeah.
And my face turning red. So Anyway, he diagnosed me with rosacea, and he says, this is an incurable disease. It comes mild to extreme, and sometimes it can affect your eyesight. And then he showed me pictures of it. And it was like such a strange moment because in the corporate world for years, I had never come across the word incurable because there was always a solution. There was always a possibility.
Yeah.
And here's this doctor just final. This is incurable. You're going to have it the rest of your life. And I'm like baffled. And medication's your only answer. Now, I wasn't as wise as I feel like I am today on natural remedies, but somehow in my own wisdom, it was like, I'm not lacking medication, but I don't know what I'm lacking. So I decided, just like you and in your audience, to get other opinions. So I went and I got 5 opinions, 5 major dermatologists, and they all gave me different answers, different medication that they suggested in more of an emergency. Some of them had, no, you need to do it. You need to get on this medication right now. And that was really confusing. So I decided, number one, and I really want your audience to get this with me, is that in those moments of being diagnosed with anything, if we don't understand our own body and our own immune system, we are helpless, hopeless, just at the mercy of somebody else. And I decided that I was not going to do that. I would go on my own path. I would understand the immune system. I would solve this to the best of my ability, not knowing if I could solve it, and never be placed in this helpless position again, ever, ever. That this was my challenge. But I realized that having my background in the corporate world, solving all kinds of different issues, kind of being like the firefighter in the corporate world, putting out fires, was really such a blessing in the end because it gave me that experience in the corporate world where I could prove what I knew. And now I'm here. So I believe the great divine doesn't make mistakes and isn't confused, right? So when I got on this journey, I was a little confused because I had no information about self-care, love, compassion. That was not my journey. So over the next 6 years, I'll fast forward, I go to many different doctors, asking them the same question. If I have a disease cell today, so first of all, number one, I have a healthy cell today, and then it turns into a disease cell. Why can't it return? Why can't it correct itself? Because I know that if any of us scratch our arm today, it heals. So why is this one symptom, whatever the health issue is or the diagnosis, why does it feel so complicated? Is there some basics? I mean, we all have 12 organ systems. We all have blood, and so I'm asking basic questions. Why can't it reverse? Doctor after doctor, nobody's answering me. It's mostly medication. They're sent to school to medicate it or cut it out, and that's the bottom line. Nobody's understanding the immune system. So now I'm studying with many holistic practitioners and doctors, and they don't have the answer either. So 6 years of this, going on the strictest diet, trying everything to my ability, every day studying, I'm progressively getting worse. So I went from boils to my face deforming. In the 6th year, I'm losing my eyesight. I can't read or drive. So now, like 41, 42 years old, this corporate expert is down. She's running out of money because my insurance wouldn't cover my route, but I'm determined. And so at somewhere around 42 years old, my face is deformed. I'm losing my eyesight. And it really looked like my life was over. And I knew that I couldn't live another 40 years this way. There was something in me that was like, I cannot even think that way. I cannot think this is impossible. Then I'm led to a workshop in California on how to prevent cancer, coronary, and stroke. I didn't have any of it, but there's 5 medical doctors that are now in the holistic field giving this talk. And I go, and I'm sitting there when this one doctor gets up in front and he says he came from overseas to come to America to become a doctor to learn about the immune system. And again, they told him, we teach you how to medicate medications and cutting it out. But he went on and got advanced training in the immune system. And when I'm hearing him, I'm like, wow, if I could only have some time with him personally.
Mhm.
So I did. I created, God created it. I had 1 hour with this person, and I
Mhm.
have this big file of my background and all my search. And he looks at the first vaccine that I took for allergies, and he said, "Oh my goodness, most people get arthritis from that."
Wow.
But because I had burnt out my immune system, literally burnt it out with my work addiction,
Mhm.
that my immune system then was so low that when I took the allergy shots, it just finalized my immune system and it came out on my face. Now, the good
Mhm.
news is, if it had come out on my back, I would have still been working. I would have killed myself working, right?
Yeah.
But I couldn't hide anymore this bright red face that was deforming. So he said he didn't know if I'd ever heal. But number one, stop going to doctors.
Mm.
Stop looking at pictures of deformed faces.
Yeah.
Find peace within, he said, at whatever price it takes for you to find it. I hadn't known peace within for years, right?
Yeah.
So this is like such, it sounds so simple, but it was really a very big assignment. So I decided to go on a journey. And first of all, there was a hospital that was doing a program on stress reduction. So
Mm.
I went there for 5 days, but I didn't hear anything they said, because by the time I got on the elevator to go to this class, everybody's looking at my red face. I didn't hear anything. I was just so embarrassed
Mm.
and so frail and so skinny. And what the doctor did tell me, that's telling me peace within, is he took my pulse by taking my wrist and feeling how each organ was firing with each other. And he says, you'll never heal as long as you got an internalized quiver. Well, nobody else had ever looked at this, and I had never shared it with anybody because I didn't understand it. It was like, what is it? So the internalized quiver is when our spiritual intelligence within the 12 organ system moves out of harmony with nature or within ourselves and sets up this vibration that's strictly governed from fear and trauma.
Mm. Yeah.
So, regardless of what the health issue is, we cannot heal as long as we have that internalized quiver.
Mhm.
So, it has to come back to the equilibrium inside of ourselves where healing can actually begin, where we're at peace and we move out of fear. So, just like your program of fear and love, right? It's hard to love ourselves when we feel really ugly and the mirror shows it, right? We look in the mirror and we
Mhm.
go, oh, how can I visualize my face being healed? So from that doctor, I got into a group that was working on fear and being empowered. It was more of a corporate thing, but anyway, 80 people showed up for a week in a workshop in Eugene, Oregon, and I took that class. And really interesting. I thought I'd probably die in front of 80 new people looking at me, but they were all about emotional healing. And this was a whole new idea for me, that the emotions had anything to do with healing. Nobody
Mm.
else had suggested, do you need a hug? Have you cried? No, I hadn't cried in years.
Mhm.
And so that first night in that workshop is very profound. They have us make a list. I really suggest this for your listeners, of all your likes and dislikes. And then you put them in priority order and you start doing away with the things that don't bring you joy. But my list was major dislikes over and over and over again. And on the like list of joy or love, or I had nothing. I had nothing on that side. And I was wise enough to know, oh my goodness, I am way out of balance. I go in their commercial bathroom and I'm looking at myself. I'm there all by myself in the women's bathroom, looking in the mirror, and I say, I don't know how to find joy or what I can like in my life anymore. I'm just kind of given up on life and I've got all these dislikes. But I know that if I do my dislikes one at a time over the next 5 years, I might not be alive, right? We take them one at a time and it's like, no, I'll just do away with that. So I'm looking in my eyes and I say to myself, okay, to the best of my ability, I'm doing away with all my dislikes right now. I'm just going to stop and I am going to find what brings me joy and it's going to be different and I'm willing to learn. In that moment, the internalized quiver stopped. The fever in my face left. I got goosebumps everywhere just sharing it because it was like this moment when my spirit said, that's your answer. That's your answer. You have no love in your life and you're filled with fear. So basically, the route I was on that many people are on is trial and error. And we try this, that doesn't work. We try that, that doesn't work. And what happens is I end up distrusting my body to heal. I'm totally confused of what is ever going to work, right? Mm-hmm. And if you combine those two, distrusting my body and feeling helpless and hopeless and just in that energy, and God isn't confused, whatever we want to call God, but I was confused, right? Mm-hmm. So out of this whole experience, fast forward through that workshop, I took advanced classes with them. In 1 year, my face healed, my capillaries healed, my eyesight came back. And eventually they got me to cry a little bit and tell my story. First, it was a whimper because I hadn't cried forever. I was just locked in my physical form. My whole skeletal was locked and shielded from having to act strong and pretend like I could exist in the middle of that, right? From all kinds of people making suggestions every day. You know, have you been in a fire and here's some help? And it was endless. It was endless being bombarded. So anyway, I healed in a year and I dedicated my life to God to share my story and just see the emotions, how the emotions are a language trying to get our attention. They show up in a physical form. We don't know how to listen. And so then they accumulate. You get a knee pain, now you got a hip pain, now you got roller coaster mood swings, now you got hair loss, now you got TMJ. And so we go to all these specialized doctors. So we are a whole person. We are a spiritual body in the human form. And the great divine, whatever we want to call this, intelligence that governs our world today, that brings the sun up and the moon, is very accurate and it lives and breathes inside of us. And when we get in harmony with that, oh, life is good. It's a whole different reality for me. So thanks for letting me share that story because it's still today very profound, finding the answer. The answer is within all of us.
Yeah. And that is so powerful. You know, you mentioned some key things, including, you know, we just, a lot of the time, the way that the medical system is set up is symptom management, right? And so then we take one thing to deal with one symptom, then we take another thing to deal with one symptom. So I don't know where you are, but right now, the Canadian medical system's in a crisis. There's so much overwhelm. There's not enough staffing and so on. So I think this is an opportunity for us to really look at healing from within and understanding how the power is within us and how something like a disease or a disorder or a pain can be helpful in the sense that it's a message. It's telling us something. How did you find that that joy was helpful in turning things around for yourself? Because I can imagine that you didn't directly go to self-love, right? And right. So what role did joy play in helping you? Because your book is called Joyful Healing. So
Right, right. Joyful holistic remedies. Because I didn't have any joy in my life, and I sure was running for years on empty.
Yeah.
So from that workshop, I would go out in the community, and one thing I did is I went to like bookstores where they were having children's storytelling, and I
Hmm.
would just listen to the children laughing and go, "What happened to my inner child? What happened? Where did laughter, die somewhere along the line?" So it started gently, and then I spent a lot of time out in nature,
Mhm.
studying in my own way, just sitting and asking, as far as I can see to the right or to the left out here in the sky, there is no place where the great divine is not. So then teach me your ways because my ways have not worked. And
Mhm.
and becoming that little kid, that's just I want to figure this out. I want to know how it feels. What does joy feel like? So I've
Mhm.
taken up music again. I play guitar, write my songs around my story, and that's been helpful. So joy is major. I think every day finding ways to find joy rather than staying on automatic. Even for me, after all these years, it's like
Yeah.
it's really a great remedy. Love and joy, a great remedy, and not being stuck in situations. I say we're either living our passion or we're living our pain,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, that's very powerful. What role did forgiveness have in your healing journey? Because at some point, I think you probably had to deal with all those emotions of the trauma that happened to you.
Right,
So,
right.
what was the
So,
role of forgiveness in terms of whether it be just forgiveness for yourself?
right, absolutely. So, I've been in the recovery world for a long time, trying to get to the bottom of just healing, right, and self-love. So forgiveness is, for me, is really important. And a lot of my clients will come and they want to, they think forgiveness is about those people out there. I
Mhm.
think forgiveness is for ourselves first, of forgiving myself that somehow took on the belief that I was unworthy, that I wasn't sacred, that I was broken, that I was devalued. So taking on this message about who I am that got totally twisted in this social conditioning of being not okay,
Mhm.
no matter how brilliant, that my only worth was in work, let's say. So
Yeah.
forgiving myself to see that there was just these layers of false core beliefs that started early in my childhood and then became a belief system.
Mhm.
And so forgiving layers and layers and layers of just taking a look at even judgment, right? How we judge that person's bad or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's a great question, but forgiveness for me starts with ourselves.
Mhm. Yeah.
Because I was
Definitely.
born with a purpose and passion, pure, just like my fingerprints, that nobody else can duplicate. But now I've been wounded and got this other belief system, right? That I'm no good, I don't have value, I can never accomplish, sure can never write my own story. So there's just layers, right? But they're
Yeah.
false. And then when we heal that part, that voice that is very strong, that wants to prove to us that we're unworthy. So the not
Yeah.
okayness just keeps coming up and coming up. No, I can't do that. I don't have value. I'm not powerful enough. And
Mhm.
then face it, just like the rosacea was on my face the forgiveness
Yeah.
and start owning the preciousness that's within all of us and transform our lives into the sacred, what I call the sacred that lives within us, that intelligence that's like our GPS system, our intuition that guides us and says, are you authentic?
Mhm.
Are you living your passion? Are you congruent? Do you have three, you know, three different groups of people and you show up different in all of them, trying to make sure that you look good or that, that you
Mhm.
say the right thing? No, dropping all that because it's such a pretend world.
Mhm. And it's too hard to keep up that facade. I wanted to go back to when something happens to us that is unexpected. I think sometimes it can be really hard, especially if it's a trauma. It can be really hard to feel safe, to trust that we are going to be okay. What helped you kind of gain that trust in yourself that no matter what happens in life, that you would be able to overcome?
Right. Feeling secure in our own skin, right? Feeling
Mhm.
secure in our own skin. So once we're hurt, exactly what you're saying, we're now shielded against the next hurt.
Mhm.
But there comes a point when if you look at nature, the worst storms create the greatest rainbows.
Mm.
And seeing that regardless of what happens to me, like the rosacea, right? Who would have thought that I would help hundreds of people understand their own immune system, find their sacred self, learn how to do self-care? If you'd have told me this in the corporate world, I would have just, it would have been just a nice thought, right?
Yeah, and I think that's why gratitude is so important, right? To be able to be grateful for the and find kind of the silver lining in those instances.
Right.
Um,
And
yeah.
teaching people, right now, I've been teaching people how to write their story, not to relive their story, but to stand on top of the story rather than in their story, to find out what they experienced, how strong they are, just like me with the rosacea, right? And
Mhm.
then coming out the other side to validate themselves and to empower themselves.
Yeah.
So we don't keep wallowing in the story. It's not about reliving the story. It's like it's made us stronger and wiser, and especially as women, to move on. The world needs our stories.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think using storytelling is so powerful because I think each of us has a unique story and life experience, like you mentioned. And so everybody has something to contribute, which I think is really, really key.
Really key, whether it's in a manual, a family treasure, a book, a self-help book, magazine, it's needed out there. So to think, no, no, there's so many books out there. Why would I write another book? It's really important for our own healing, for our own coming into self-love.
Yeah.
And one of the things I'd like to mention is that when I was talking about trial and error remedies, which will leave us just totally confused,
Hmm.
over those many years, painful years, out of that, I've developed a 16 area lifestyle evaluation
Hmm.
to move anybody out of trial and error. So it looks at, the spiritual side, the emotional side, the physical side. What are you doing right? What could you improve on? And then we do baby steps from there. But in an hour and a half, people get to actually look at, where am I out of balance and how can I come back in balance? And in an hour and a half, they get their own answers. They get
Mm.
their own answers of, oh, so there's a saying, we can't see the trees for the forest. It's kind of that
Yeah.
same way. We're just going every day thinking, oh, well, I've been studying on the web this, so this is what I'm going to do. And still coming back feeling empty. It's like, no. So it's really a joy, some of the programs I've put together that definitely came out of my own story, and then over many years of proving how to come back to exactly what you're teaching, how to come back to loving ourselves, treating ourselves kindly. So for me, 80% is going to be emotional and spiritual, 20% is going to be exercise and diet. Most people, it's 80% diet and fasting and
Hmm.
and detox and all this. I go, no, stop, stop. Just be gentle on the human body. It knows how to recover. It knows
Hmm.
how to recover and heal.
Yeah. Thank you. That's so powerful. I was wondering if you could share a little bit with the audience about how they can tap more into that inner sacred spirit that you were talking about, that sacredness. Because a lot of people, sometimes the mind is like the ego. It's more ego than it is like intuition. So what helps people get more intuitive guidance rather than ego guidance?
Right. So let me take a breath here. And self care and self love are really the key of coming back to owning our sacredness. If we look at our little finger today, when was the last time we appreciated our little finger? Probably never, right? What would life be like without a little toe? When did we appreciate our little toe? Probably never, right? So what I teach is sounds basic, about coming home to ourselves. What is this body? You know, when was the last time I really understood where my liver was and how it served me 24 hours a day without me even thinking? But if I can come back to appreciation and even have compassion for my body will respond like a little kid that hasn't been recognized forever and has lost the sparkle in his eyes because it hasn't been recognized. So I do a body prayer that actually goes through the entire body, starting with the toes, all the way through the organ system to the mind, bringing us back. They record it. And what happens is that you re-listen to it. You start going, oh, I can believe this because this is who I am, not what I thought I have. I'm just walking around like this robot, right? This empty body, mesmerized by TV, computer, text, just keeping myself busy so I don't have to think. And life is passing us by. Life is just totally passing us by. There is no sacred in our lives. So, great question. So, meditation, but for a traumatized person, even that's hard.
Yeah, agreed.
So, I would like to share just a moment on traumatized people. For me, like I was, we treat different in self-recovery. So a traumatized person is where all the different traumas accumulate in the human body, in the spirit, and they're trying to get our attention many times through health issues. We don't understand it, right? So we get all these different diagnoses. So a traumatized person, I take in baby steps of self-care. How do you love yourself so that the child within us can trust life again? So it's a process. It's a process of learning how to massage your body, how to be thankful, but to do everything with intention of I'm coming back to my heart. I'm coming back to owning who I am. True to myself is not selfish. Is not selfish. Some people have been taught that anything about ourselves is selfish. It's not. Not seeing ourselves as sacred and just part of the great divine plan in life, and that we have a purpose and passion that we need to be living rather than this story of what's too late for me. So self-care, I do a lot around self-care because it's so important. We've kind of lost who we are on this journey.
I love what you said in terms of how you start the journey, little things that really make our body and make ourselves feel seen. I think that is super, super powerful. Really, really important.
Self-care is like an emergency that we do every day for a traumatized person. It's not like, well, once a month I can take time to do this, right?
One of the things you had talked about was the fact that people perceive self-love as narcissism. We kind of taught, we've been taught that, it's more important to do things for others, but don't realize that if our buckets are empty, we may give to other people, but we'll resent it. I think people misunderstand the concept of being loving and compassionate to ourselves and nurturing ourselves. Naturally, we'll evolve to wanting to give to others from our overflow, not from our reserves. But I think people confuse that and say, oh no, I have to be valuable if I serve others, because if I do it for myself, it's selfish or narcissistic. But I think people really misunderstand. Narcissistic people require external validation. They don't really love themselves, because if they did, they would not need to control anybody.
Right.
But it's funny how we have that. What do you think that comes from, that perspective about, that we derive greater value from serving others than we do, but being there for ourselves and therefore being able to go from that space?
Right. I believe that it started as children. where we were taught not to cry, not to feel, not to be real.
Yeah.
Where another family teaches you that crying is important, right? And that feeling and expressing your emotions is important. But fast forward, then we come in life where we have these no, it's selfish to feel, right? And so we are going to end up with regrets of not giving people our overflow. And how we live our life is how we're going to die. So I've been in nursing homes where people have been screaming at the end of the evening when other people are bedded down and quiet. There's this group of people that I got to witness, especially women, that fight. And I mean, they're just angry, but it's because life has passed them by. They serve their children, they serve their husband, they serve the church, they served as a volunteer. And now all of a sudden there is no more to life. And so they're angry. And I would be angry too. So I want to make sure that how I live right now is really programmed in me, so that the way I want to die is I want to be singing. I want to hit a high note and just let go. Just let go. I don't want to be in the nursing home for 10 years begging to die on medication, which is very common in our system.
Yeah, for sure. Sometimes the kinds of parents that said don't cry, they couldn't regulate their own emotions. They needed the children to regulate themselves so that they didn't dysregulate. And so they needed to control their environment so that they would feel at peace. So they really truly didn't have mastery over their own emotions. So they couldn't hold space for their children. So therefore they needed them not to have any emotions. And so what a disservice we've done to ourselves to kind of not be able to do that. So I love what you said also about when you were advised to find peace regardless, because that's true mastery, isn't it?
True
Isn't
mastery.
Yeah.
True mastery.
To be
I believe the children that are taught not to feel, if we could follow their lives, will be the ones that choose addictions to feel something. And the child that has been taught that they have value and that their emotions have value, you watch them, they will make healthier choices.
Yeah, agreed.
Right?
Yeah.
So if we're taught to be shut down, we're just longing to feel something, and life doesn't make sense when we're shut down incorrectly.
Yeah. Yeah. So interesting. I have a number of family members that have fibromyalgia. It's interesting because the doctors call it unexplained pain. Like they don't know where it comes from, and it's so funny how, from my perspective, I'm like, well, there has to be some emotional stuff, right? That moves around, the pain moves around. But it is that lack of connection that we currently have in the medical system between that and emotions. Do you think that will change?
I would hope that it's changing. I was, hoping that it's changing. Mainly when a medical doctor has a health issue, right? Like it's cancer right after a son dies or something. They start tying it together. It's like, oh, I was really healthy and now I'm not, right?
Yeah.
So fibromyalgia is directly underneath the skin, it's like, so looking at the emotions behind all the body parts. So if it's lungs, it's sadness, grieving losses, not feeling free enough to breathe. The rosacea is like, what am I not facing? So a lot of times it's somebody really close to us or some situation really close to us, and we haven't tied the emotion into the physical. So I've helped a lot of people with fibromyalgia because it has an anger component. And we're taught never to show anger, right? And our jaws can show it, right? So there's just different ways that we're taught, again, not to feel anger or rage. And both of them are healthy when we come back to the gifts of the human spirit. That is being authentic.
Yeah.
Speaking our truth.
Yeah. We can speak our truth in a way that isn't harmful to other people, but still
being
validate.
kind rather than having to be right. And
what about like pains and like the root chakra, like the pain, like things that are associated in like the bottom, like the base?
So in the female part, right?
Like maybe around there.
For me, it would be from being sexually abused and then being misused, or in my feminine part, of not understanding that sex a lot of times is coupled with love, right? If I give to this
Mm,
person sexually, then that means they love me, rather
mm,
than seeing that I am lovable whether I perform any acts or not.
mm-hmm.
No, it's
Yeah, that's a
major.
good
It's
one.
major. So we're going
Mhm,
to have pain in that area because we're not being truthful. I'm
mhm,
using my body and I'm not healing that accumulated memories. It might even be generations of how my mother was treated.
mhm. So intergenerational pain can pass, like as well, like in terms of the,
I believe our habits are passed down, our beliefs.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. What about back pain? A lot of people I hear get back pain.
Back pain usually is tied in with financial issues or
Mm,
the burdens that we're going through, the heaviness of life. I feel heavy, I feel weighted down from my situation, and it shows up in my back.
mm, yeah, yeah. Isn't that interesting how the body communicates with us in that, but we're so unaware of we've so separated ourselves from ourselves and our true inner compass that, we rely on external things to tell us where we need to be.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Because the path
Absolutely.
towards healing can feel challenging, right? It can feel challenging to face a lot of those emotions. I know I've gone through my journey and having to face a lot of those, and it can feel really uncomfortable. But on the other side of that discomfort is your freedom,
Absolutely.
yeah, but it
And the
can
pain
feel,
can actually instantly release once you understand what's driving it. So I have a current client right now that has had this pain, the emotional pain, like in her stomach, where we say, it feels like a knot in my stomach, Georgie, all the time, right? So I do guided imagery because it moves us out of our head. So our body, when Jesus talked in parables, my take is that he drew in the sand and gathered all of us around and then had this story. Well, we have a parable going on from the neck down, and we don't know how to find it. We don't know how to address it. So we try to figure it out with head knowledge, and that doesn't work. So I do guided imagery where we actually get to talk to the body and find out what it has to say. But just this last weekend and doing guided imagery with her, she said, my pain is gone. I
wow.
said, yeah, because we gave a voice to it. We gave a voice to it.
Yeah, yeah. It's amazing. It's also amazing how I know that you've with some of your clients, you also help them in terms of even sell their house.
Right.
And what was that about? Can you share?
So I've been doing house blessings for over 10, 15 years now. And at first it was just kind of a hobby. And then when it started working, so I work with angels
Mm,
and they just ask us, so what do you want? Right. So I've had homes that have been on the market for 3 years, very expensive homes, and nobody's buying. So you just come in and talk to the house or the office or the corporation or whatever we're working with, the same way we would the human body.
mm.
So we bless it. And as we bless the house, invariably over all these years, the houses have sold in 3 to 5 days.
Oh,
Now,
wow.
one just sold in 24 hours, but that was an exception. But anyway, I treat the house and the situation. Just imagine the carpenters that built the house. What was their mentality the day they built it? Were they arguing? Were they hungover from the night before? Were they have a higher consciousness to build this house? Were they ready to just get it done? I mean, did they have any consciousness about having a holy, sacred space? Probably not, right? But maybe.
Mm,
So we're going to give them credit. So I come in, and maybe there's been many people that have lived in this house and sold it and whatever. So the house actually takes on a character that
mm,
says, I don't want to sell. I'm never going to sell because you're not appreciating what is right now. So
mm,
it's really fun because I can do it remotely and I can teach people how to do it. And it's such a blessing when you see the sacredness of the voice in the house, kind of like our body that says, this is the kind of person I would like to buy this house that could really appreciate me.
mm,
And when you get in touch with that, I had a home out in California that was millions and millions of dollars, and they wanted to sell it to like some Hollywood people that would use it for parties and whatever. But this home on the desert was absolutely amazing. I said, no, this looks like a retreat center. And so the angels were sharing, you know, the type of person that they wanted to buy it rather than a party place for gambling and whatever.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. That's what happened. Once we blessed the house, that other person came in and took over. So
That's such a great story. Does it work for renovations? Because we feel like we've been in renovations forever. It just doesn't feel like it ends. Like, can we talk to the house and just say, like, we want to see you finished?
right. I think doing blessings often in our spaces and removing clutter and having beauty and order, so it's a sacred place that we live and where we sleep, and blessing all of it is.
Mm-hmm.
And new relationships, you know, when you get a new relationship of some kind, or when there's a death of a loved one, you know, being able to let go rather than grieving for years where, you know, they've gone on, right? They're celebrating and they don't want us to grieve. We can miss them definitely, but we can also feel them. And I believe that once they are on the other side, they also can help us, right? They're here to companion us and they don't want us to be sad. So
yeah, that is always the hardest for the people that stay behind, right? Because I also, like you, believe that this isn't just it, like that we have other
right.
opportunities to either to, you know, live other lives or go other places. But death can feel so final for the people that are here that miss them, that miss people, right? So
Right. And that's where self-care really comes in also.
mhm.
And maybe expanding our minds that there's more to this, right? So I've lost 4 of my siblings and my mom and dad, and I'm the one that's left, but I know that they're multidimensional and they are here even in this conversation.
Mhm.
You
Yeah. Do
know,
you ever feel them around?
I do. And I definitely work with the angels and teach people how to connect to their angels. It's so important. And you know, some people go, no, I don't believe in angels. I think they're bad and whatever. I was like, wait until you experience them, you know? It's just a
Yeah.
whole new world of asking. So they're like expensive employees standing around saying, if you just ask, Georgie, if you just ask, we'll help you. And we're taught not to ask anybody. Be strong, just go through this life. And when you turn that around and you know that you have a whole force of people here wanting to help you and create a life that you love, it really goes with the sacred.
Yeah. So powerful. I'm asking this of all my guests. What's your definition of unconditional love?
Wow. Unconditional love. So my definition of unconditional love would be, regardless of the situation I'm in, regardless, life is always changing. A coming back, knowing that something greater than myself created me, number one,
Mm.
something greater than myself is directing my life, number two, and that unconditional love is what I was born with.
Mhm.
So if you'll allow me, I'm going to try to sing one of my songs.
Yeah, yes, please.
So imagine with me the day you were born, for the whole audience, the day you were born. You might have been born at home or in the hospital, but there's all this commotion, right? You go from being the secure child in the mother's womb, and then all of a sudden there's all this noise and lights and whatever. So I'm going to walk you through it verbally and then I'll sing it. So imagine right now that you could hold that child in your arms, and with all this commotion going on, that in your inner ear the angels start reassuring you of who you are. So the angels saying the day you were born, just to you privately, holy, holy, holy is this child. Divine and good, divine and good. Your divinity, that sacredness you would learn to love. The angels are singing to you today. Holy, holy, holy are you, my child. Divine and good and sacred. Allow your sacredness to unfold and own it. And don't let anybody take it from you or anything. So here's how the song goes. Imagine that little child in your arm, just reconnecting to the inner child. The angels sang the day you were born. Holy, holy, holy is this child. The angels whispered your name. Holy, holy is this child. Divine and good, divine and good, divine. The angels are singing you a love song today. Holy are you, my child. Wait for us in the inner silence. Get your answers from deep within. Like water seeping into dry ground. Be filled with love, be filled with compassion. The angels sang the day you were born. Holy, holy, holy is this child. The angels whispered your name. Holy, holy is this child. We take a breath, knowing that this day, in every cell and every fiber of your body, is a divine intelligence that lives in harmony and peace and love and compassion. Allow your spirit to guide you, to lead you, to embrace you, to teach you its ways, so that as we live our passion, not our pain, because we've discovered self-love, 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 and empower ourselves and our voice to give others our overflow, and not out of exhaustion and resentment about how we treat ourselves, but to give out of our own self-love and our self-care until the people around us notice from our example and want what we want. So we don't preach to them, try to change their lives. We just live by overflow of self-love within us. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for having me on this program.
Oh, no, thank you. Just a little bit weepy there. I was wondering if you could share with the audience as a final question where people can find you and come work with you. So share your, social media, your website, whatever you have.
Right. So my website is georgieholbrook.com. That's GeorgieHolbrook.com. You can see a list of my services. I do a free 15-minute with you if you want to get on and just talk to me of how I can help you or direct you. I also am looking for other team players that might want to do some classes together, or a panel of people where we get asked questions and find answers. However I can serve, I am here 100% dedicated to being in the ministry of helping others. So I'm on YouTube, but you can find me through my website easy and contact me. So, But thank you.
No, thank you
Good.
very much. Thank you so much for being here. That was such a wonderful, wonderful chat. I gained definitely quite a bit for myself, and I know my audience will as well. Don't forget to check out Georgie Holbrook on her website and her books, one of them which is Joyful Healing. And join us for another episode of the Love and Compassion
And
podcast.
free chapters are available on all 4 books also
yes.
that they can read. And many podcasts are on my website also.
Nice. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Georgie.
Thank
Have
you.
a great day.
Thank you. Blessings to you.
Blessings.
Multiplied.
Thanks.